Ohayo. Welcome to this So Japanese podcast, a podcast about all things Japan from a
Japanese
and foreign perspective. We are your hosts. My name is John.
My name is Ryusuke.
Thank you for joining us today.
Arigato.
Today we kind of have an informational, historical podcast, one of those ones, about the first Europeans to arrive in Japan, and we'll have a Omoroi segment at the end. Just before we start, we kind of feel awkward doing it, but we would like to let our listeners know that if you guys want to support us, we have a Buy Me a Coffee account. So I guess it's like you can find our link in our social media or the podcast description, wherever you listen to the podcast. And yeah, I guess it's like you can buy us a coffee, pretty much giving us money for coffees.
Yep.
But yeah, so the reason why we're asking now is we want to do some equipment upgrades.
Yep.
Get some better lighting, maybe better quality mics. And it is a lot of work, right?
It is, yes.
So I mean, we're still going to offer our podcast for free, but for our listeners, if you guys want to, no pressure, no obligation, head over to that link and
please
support us. Other than that, you can also support us by following our social media accounts on TikTok and Instagram, as well as giving us 5 stars on wherever you listen to podcasts.
お願いします。
Yeah, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
はい。
So let's start.
Yep.
So the first Europeans to arrive in Japan were the Portuguese. I guess it was either going to be the Portuguese, the Spanish, or the Dutch, because during that time, those countries
are the main countries.
Like trying to travel and colonize, right?
Yeah.
So after many attempts of trying to reach Japan, because they already had like outposts or even colonized Goa, Macau, Penang in Malaysia, they wanted to go to Japan as well. So they arrived in either August or September in 1543. So they arrived in a Chinese junk on their way to, I guess, one of their trading posts in China.
Yep.
So the boat carried about 100 Chinese sailors and only 3 Portuguese men. So I guess it was blown off course by a typhoon.
Yep.
And then they accidentally arrived in
Tanegashima,
a small island off the coast of Kyushu.
So it wasn't purposely.
No.
It was just accidentally landed.
I think a lot of like the boat travel back then was by accident, right?
Yeah.
Like Christopher Columbus accidentally went to America.
Yep. And found what is this huge land?
Right, huge land. That's why natives were called Indian back, because he wanted to go to India.
I see.
So he thought
it was India.
Yeah.
Ah.
So yeah, off Kyushu, but I think they eventually set up in Nagasaki. I guess typhoon season, right? During that time?
It is, yeah. August and September is like we get a lot of typhoon. Yep.
Was this information taught in school?
I mean, like we know the Portuguese people alive in Tanegashima, but I didn't know it wasn't purposely.
Oh, okay.
Kidding. I thought it was on purpose, and then like the Portuguese people with the Portuguese ship came. Maybe because I'm not that smart,
or you didn't pay attention too much, or whatever. It's history
for sure. Like all the other my friends who study nicely and then they did doing their job. Maybe they know, but I didn't know. Yeah.
I didn't do the homework. So what the Japanese thought of the Portuguese. So I guess they kept coming, right?
Yep.
So because of their weird looking ships exotic appearance. Their clothing was different. The language they spoke was different. And the goods they brought with them were also different. Right? Yeah. So I think that time, like if they're the first Europeans, I think maybe only they were familiar with the Chinese.
Yeah.
Right? So they didn't maybe know that there was other people that didn't look Asian. Maybe.
Yeah, I guess like this time, the Japanese people only knew the Asian foreigner people.
Yeah, right.
Which is Chinese. And yeah.
Or maybe like the Ainu people. They kind of look a little, they're hairy, right? So they could have been like a little bit European. But either way, they look different.
Yep.
And they referred to them as
Nambanjin.
So Jin is person, right?
Yep.
What's Namban?
Namban means like south. The people from south has weird face. Like
like a weird looking southerner people.
Yeah.
I guess loosely translated, you can call them as southern barbarians. They, I guess, were traveling on boats, so they were dirty, unshaven, and super hairy. Accounts of when the Japanese first met them, they said that they would like get super drunk and act all weird.
Yeah.
They didn't use chopsticks.
How they eat is different.
Right. A funny thing is that they mentioned that they let their emotions show. So
because Japanese people don't show.
Yeah.
Even back then, Japanese were Japanese.
Exactly. So
yeah,
they thought like, yeah, they act on emotion. Right? So they did think that they were like a bit barbaric, but the Japanese did see them as possibly good and intriguing because they could bring good fortune. They can bring money. Early art depicting the Portuguese arrival, in the art they showed like these white faces with super long big noses.
Nose with like weird big
weird for them, eyes. It's almost like a caricature. Like the nose is so long and big, right?
Yeah.
And then they depicted them as wearing like these balloon pants.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. But it became a bit fashionable for the Japanese to start dressing like Namban style. So one of the lords,
the Hideyoshi Toyotomi,
he really liked Namban fashion. So he made his like people
wear
influence them to dress like this. It looks cool, right?
Yeah.
Even in Kyoto, like the capital, even amongst the poor people, Portuguese style undergarments became really popular. And even like cheap Namban style tailoring shops opened.
Wow.
Yeah, so big influence.
So like since that time, Japanese people loves fashion.
Yeah, I believe that for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like I think just looking at the kimono, all the design.
That's true. That's
right?
Colorful.
Like arguably you can say kimono is like a simple piece of clothing, right? But the intricate designs, right?
Yep.
So what did they trade? So during the time when the Portuguese came, Japan was in the middle of a civil war.
Yeah, everywhere.
So over territory, different clans, different families, warlords were all fighting each other.
It's called Sengoku Jidai.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know how many? Like many families,
many,
right?
Yeah, many.
So I guess it was a good time for the Portuguese to come because when they came, they also brought their guns. I think they're like matchlock guns, that do they call them? I guess you gotta actually light something on fire to shoot, right? So they were really intrigued with these guns because the Japanese armor was just, I guess, leather, cloth.
Yeah.
Right? Well, good for swords.
Exactly. Only for the swords. I mean, like the gun didn't exist.
Right.
Bomb didn't exist.
So they, number one, really wanted these guns, wanted to know how to use them, and also eventually how to make them themselves, right? So they quickly also adapted the European style plate armor. So I'm guessing the lord or the clan that was in the Kyushu area got the most guns, no?
Yeah, for sure. At first,
right?
Yeah.
You'd win. So because of the guns, they started a trading post in Nagasaki. So initially firearms, then basic items like soap and tobacco, and then eventually more valuable things. So the Portuguese brought in tin, lead, gold, silk, wool, cotton, sugar, amongst other things. I guess even those things didn't come directly from Portugal. It came from India, China, Malaysia as well. And then the Japanese exported swords, lacquerware, silk, and silver.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because like the Japanese exchanged like skilled things, not just like
the
raw materials,
like
right? So like swords, I guess. Damn, they know how to make really strong and sharp swords.
Yeah.
Right? Lacquerware, right? They have skills to make things. Really interesting. So sugar is something really important that they brought, which brings us to food. So what are the most popular Japanese dishes that were actually Portuguese?
Castella.
Castella cake.
Yeah. And then bolo.
Bolo is like
it's like a biscuit. Yeah.
Kids eat it, right?
Kids eat it. Yes.
It's like a little small circle.
Tamago bolo. Yeah.
And and candy. Right?
Candy. Yeah.
So, but the most famous one, food item, I guess would be
tempura.
So, tempura. Every Japanese restaurant in North America now probably
they have tempura.
Right? Yep. Some sort of tempura.
Yeah.
So internationally, everyone knows tempura, but I would think maybe the Portuguese don't, but everywhere else thinks it's a Japanese food, right? So originally, tempura was a Portuguese food. So it was a battered fried green bean, normally eaten during Lent. So the word tempura comes from the Latin word tempora. So I guess, which means like the time of fasting. So during those days, they are not allowed to eat meat. So they made tempura, which was a fried green bean, I guess to mimic fish like a long fish or something like that. And it's cheap, right? But it was different. It was like more like a donut-y batter. So it was like sugar, flour, eggs, and it was fried in lard. So more like a sweet fritter. But the Japanese totally changed it almost, right?
Yeah.
So they made the batter lighter.
Lighter, and a bit of egg yolk and ice water. That's the tempura butter for Japan.
And not just green beans.
No.
Like anything now.
Anything. I guess most popular one is shrimp, obviously. Yeah.
But like, all sorts of vegetables.
Yeah. We don't fry any veggies.
Yeah,
no, sorry. Like in a sweet way. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, actually. So tempura.
Yep.
Is Portuguese.
Yeah. And
I remember like telling my Japanese friends that tempura is actually Portuguese, and it kind of like they didn't know.
They're shocked.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think when I found out this, I was like, oh, really? Okay, because I think all Japanese people thought tempura is from Japan.
Yeah, right.
But
the word sounds Japanese.
Right?
Yeah.
But I guess at the end, all type of food we have in Japan is basically from somewhere else.
That's true.
Like curry, even ramen, you know. For sure, when we go through all the history, and then there's a lot of influence by other countries.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
What's your favorite tempura?
Oh, shrimp.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, shrimp. Actually, a couple of days ago, me and my girlfriend had a tempura dinner at my house. I did tempura. It stink, of course, because you deep fry, but we both were really satisfied. Yeah,
I've never been, but I really want to go to those omakase tempura places.
Yeah,
where they fry for you fresh,
right in front of you.
And I like it because like it's so crisp how it's fried that they can cut it in half just with chopsticks.
Yep. And then you can hear the sound like.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. I went there when I was in Japan. And
does it stink?
Yeah,
it does. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I guess like open kitchen, right?
Open kitchen. There's a counter, and then like chefs are cooking in the counter, right? But yeah, because like Japanese tempura is you have to eat quick. The butter itself, it's not made for stay crunchy forever. So that's why it makes sense to eat like omakase tempura. Yeah, you always get fresh tempura. Eat. If you don't eat, they're waiting
before they fry the next one, right?
Yeah, because I was eating quick, but my girlfriend mom was eating kind of slow. So like chefs are just waiting, you know.
The oil just keeps on getting hotter.
Exactly. And I also know how he feels. So I'm like, I need to eat quick.
You need to, from listening from our Nabe episode, you need to watch the pace of your friends, man. You should eat slower.
I was watching pace for chef.
The chef, right? Yeah, they want you to get the fuck out so the next customer can come in, right?
Exactly.
That's interesting, right? So it's either you eat it fresh because they know that's the peak of how you should eat tempura, but then you'll also see tempura done in convenience stores in plastic wrap and soggy.
Yeah. But also, Japanese people eat soggy fried stuff. We don't mind.
Yeah. How much is like a omakase
tempura cost? No, it was so cheap. It was like, obviously it's not over $100. It was like, I would say like 75.
So if people don't want to spend the more expensive like sushi omakase, but they still want to have that Japanese counter experience where the chefs serve you, tempura omakase is a good option, right?
For sure.
What other omakases are there?
Sushi, tempura, like kaiseki ryori, like Japanese, like traditional Japanese
set
style
menu,
like. So
but that would be more expensive, right?
More expensive, but you get basically everything, right? Like you get sashimi, you might get
tempura as well. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Or we mentioned it before, a good option if you want to experience the omakase sushi, but don't want to spend the $300 or whatever. Lunch you mentioned before is a good option, right? Always cheaper.
Yeah.
And easier to get that reservation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So going back to the foods, castella, it's like a sponge cake. I think we mentioned it in one of our podcasts recently.
Yep.
Funny thing is that I don't know if the Portuguese even eat castella all that much or tempura all that much.
I don't think
I feel like the Japanese kind of took that food and made it their own, or internationally people think it's Japanese,
think for
right?
for the Japanese people at that time was just blow their mind. Like, what is this food?
Yeah, right.
We don't have this.
Yeah.
And why so good?
So with the castella, they didn't have something like that, and the bolo didn't have something like that because using beaten egg was not a technique they used for cooking.
No.
So obviously you need to beat an egg to make a cake, right? So definitely. Also, and who doesn't like sweet?
Yeah. And also the flour too. Like
that's true.
When at that time in Japan, how they eat what's the called? Nobari wheat. It's basically they don't mill them. They just get the berry and then they cook
Okay.
like rice.
Like rice.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So they didn't know how to like to use this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So-
powder them, and
Maybe they didn't even powder rice yet,
I don't think so.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Because like they're isolate too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so beaten eggs was that technique was brought by the Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
Corn,
Mm-hmm.
chili peppers. I think chili peppers.
Mm.
The Portuguese are responsible for bringing chili peppers to India and Thailand too.
Oh, really?
So two places where you think like of spicy food aren't actually native to them. Yeah. So
Even Thailand.
yeah.
Wow.
The- It's the Portuguese brought it. I think back then, because the Portuguese traveled a lot, right? Chili, not just for flavor, but helped preserve
That's true.
food, right?
Yep.
And so hot countries like India and Thailand really took to it because my meat's going to spoil unless I fucking cook it in a super spicy, bacteria killing, peppery food sauce or whatever, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. Pumpkin and bread,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So obviously flour,
Flour.
right?
Yeah.
So sugar was known already in Japan, but super expensive.
Super expensive.
And it was reserved for medicinal purposes, which is interesting. But I guess eventually the Portuguese made sugar more affordable. It was still considered a luxury item, but it developed a craze for what they call Namban Kashi.
Namban kashi. Yeah.
So like, I guess foreigner, southern barbarian sweets. And one of the famous ones you just said was
Competo.
Competo.
Yeah.
You will see them all over in Japan, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Little round,
Little round with spiky.
bumpy.
Yeah, bumpy.
It kind of looks
small
like a
candy.
kidney stone, no?
I never seen kidney stones.
Really? It looks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think even spikier.
Ita.
So yeah, Castella, Bolo, Competo.
Competo. Yeah.
Started off the sugar craze. Yeah, pretty interesting. Bread, obviously. I
Yeah.
think bread, again, the Portuguese was responsible for bringing bread to China as well. Like the word bread in Chinese, bao, maybe from pao, right? From
That's true.
right?
Yes.
And then in Japanese, pan
Pang.
from Portuguese, pao
Yeah.
for bread.
Yeah.
And then even in Thailand, kanom pan. Kanom is like snack and pan is bread.
Bread.
So yeah, they're responsible for pretty much
All the Asian country.
yeah.
Wow.
Eventually, even after the Portuguese left, the term nanban used for food was just pretty much a word to add on to the food item that involved any exotic spices. So nanban curry.
Yeah. So it's like a foreign.
Yeah,
food.
anything foreign, right?
Yeah.
So like even nanban karaage, nanban chicken nanban. The use of mayonnaise is like a foreign thing.
Yeah. Namban zuke. Yeah.
Using mustard. Nanban karashi.
Yeah.
But I think eventually when Japan closed back off to the rest of the world, the word nanban was just interchangeable with the word China, Chinese.
Yeah.
Because anything Chinese was just foreign.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So obviously with the Portuguese came Christians.
Yeah.
So when they came, it kind of started off a so-called Christian era in Japan. So one of the more popular, I guess, Roman Catholic missionaries, Jesuit, I believe. I think that's like a subsection of Christianity.
How to say in English?
Jesuit. Yeah, Jesuit. Yeah,
In Japan we say Xavier.
Okay. So different.
Francisco Xavier.
Oh no. Yeah, that's his last name, Xavier.
Oh.
Yeah, Francis Xavier, but he was a Jesuit. The Jesuit is like a type of Christian.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So he already converted people in India and in Malaysia, and obviously he wanted to convert Japanese as well. So he founded the Society of Jesus in Japan. Again, like I think the Jesuits are called the Society of Jesus. I don't know, one of those things. So he learned Japanese in a Buddhist monastery with the idea to learn the language so I can convert people. One of his main goals was to reach the imperial city of Kyoto and preach to the emperor. Not sure if he was able to do it, but I think the Japanese were open to him because he was able to prove that the earth was round.
That's interesting.
Right? So, but it's funny because a Christian would use science to convince you when Christians themselves don't really believe in science, right?
And also, till that point, Japanese people didn't know the earth is like a globe now.
I guess you would only know if you travel by ship.
I see.
Right?
So
like I'm not falling over.
Yeah. That's
the horizon,
that's
right?
True. And then I see. Yeah.
So I guess through experiments, you know,
he proved that. Like I travel everywhere,
and the Earth is actually round. So now I can prove this. The Japanese thought, okay, I can believe other things you say.
This
right?
guy's smart.
Yeah. So by 1580, he was able to convert, not just him, but you know, in general, convert 150,000 Christians and open 200 churches in Japan, served by 85 Jesuit priests. But soon after, in 1603, I guess the Civil War kind of ended, and a central government was reestablished in Japan, and they made a law to ban Christianity as a religion. So by 1614, Shogun Iemitsu wasn't sure that these Christians would pledge allegiance solely to him rather than the church. So he decided to expel all missionaries, close all churches, and prohibit the practice of Christianity by any Japanese, as Christians were perceived as potential threat to the political stability of the new government. Makes sense, right? So yeah, the Christians, the Europeans, the Portuguese brought Christianity, which apparently like the Japanese tolerated. I want your guns. So if that comes with Christianity, okay.
Okay, we can still take it.
Right? Yeah. But I guess like it was still give or take, right?
Yeah.
Like Japan is providing things for them too. So when they banned all Christianity, a lot of the Japanese and European Christians left Japan because if they didn't, the Japanese became really hostile to them. So they would torture the remaining missionaries, kill them if they didn't leave. And this lasted for about 200 years.
Yeah, and I remember that time. This is we learned in the school.
Okay.
It's called fumie.
Okay.
So there's a Jesus picture or even art or whatever on the paper. So they put the art, the draw on the floor, and then the regular people line up in front of the picture, and they told everyone like step on it. Step on it. Okay. So if someone cannot step,
that means you're a Christian.
That means you're a Christian, and then So it was really big.
Even I think the emperor or the shogun, he even crucified a lot of Christians too back then. So at the end, there was around 300 converts and 143 missionaries. All the churches were destroyed. Those people either left or killed. There's actually a Christian memorial or a memorial for those Christians that died in mass crucifixions in Nagasaki.
Wow.
Didn't know that. So not until the reopening of Japan was Christianity legalized again, or other religions were legalized again. But I don't remember really seeing Christian churches in Japan, or like even meeting any Japanese that were Christian. Right? Like when you grew up in Japan, did you know, like, were any of your classmates or any of your friends or family friends Christians?
Yeah, actually, I have one roommate.
Okay.
I think her dad is the priest.
Okay.
So they own the church.
Yeah.
But I never even seen the church. I don't think the church is like, well,
maybe it's in the basement or like some room
or
somewhere.
Like looks like normal house.
Yeah.
There's a church too, of course, but like I don't remember there's a church around my area. But I know she's Christian.
Oh, because her dad is. Have you met anyone that like their dad is not a priest?
And they're Christian?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
I mean, because we don't even talk about religion. So maybe someone is actually...
I don't know, man. Christians would let you know.
Oh, really?
Well, Christians...
That's true. That's true.
They like to preach, and
yeah,
they feel that I want my friends, I like you, I want you to go to heaven too.
Right.
So
right. But like how I noticed she's Christian because of her name was like really interesting name.
Okay. Not Japanese.
I mean, it's Japanese name.
Oh,
she
okay.
even have kanji.
Okay.
But the meaning was like quite cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, why you have this name?
Oh.
I think I asked her. And then she's like, oh, because my dad is that. And then, oh, cool. Yeah.
How about nowadays? Do you know any Christians? Like Japanese Christians.
Yeah, for sure. But also there was these people called
Jehovah Witnesses?
Jehovah Witness. Yeah. They are everywhere. Yeah. I remember like there's those people was like two people taking bicycle and then go to door.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Do you know why they do that?
No.
Like they're the only type of, I guess, religion that I feel like actively will ring doorbells, try to convert you. Because they believe the more people they can convert, the more chances they can go to heaven.
Okay.
Because...
So that's for themselves, but also for others.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
But they do it so hardcore because I'm not sure of the number, but I think this is correct. In heaven, they believe, Jehovah's Witnesses in heaven, they believe that there's only 144,000 spaces.
Okay. So there's not so much space.
You'd think it'd be filled by now.
Yeah. That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So if like a living person converts more people than one that is already in heaven, does that person in heaven now go to hell?
That's true.
Do you get
true.
relegated? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So like Christians exist obviously, but I don't really know so many people.
Right? Yeah. I've never met a Japanese Christian.
Yeah.
Korean Christians, tons. But Japanese Christians, not really.
Not really.
Another thing about the Portuguese making contact with Japan was slavery. So I guess all those, colonizers, they brought the slave trade with them, right? So along with developing trade for other goods, they developed a large-scale slave trade. So the Japanese purchased Japanese as slaves in Japan and sold them to various locations overseas. So they sold them to, I guess, Portuguese in China, in Goa, Argentina, and Portugal itself. So they highly regarded Japanese and Chinese slaves because of what they say that their intelligence and industrious nature.
They work more in a smart way.
Exactly, right? So, but like there were so many Japanese slaves in Portugal that
This is I didn't know.
So there were so many
Yeah.
in Europe and Portugal that even King Sebastian, they became really alarmed. He became really alarmed and eventually banned as well. Because like, you know, this is a problem. Maybe he thought like, okay, there's
It's gonna be Japan.
too many Asians here.
Yeah.
Hideyoshi, I guess, emperor or
No, Hideyoshi's the Lord.
okay, Lord.
Yeah.
He was also disgusted that
Yeah.
his own people were being sold in mass into slavery in Kyushu. That he wrote letters and tried to demand the Portuguese to stop buying Japanese slaves. So he wanted you to stop buying them and also return them to Japan. So they were in Thailand, Cambodia, India. They wanted them back. So it was formally outlawed in 1595. So a bit before they kicked
Everything out.
everything out. So they kicked the Portuguese out because of the Christians, right? And I think it was mainly because of Christians and because of the slavery.
Yeah.
Right. And also, I already know, you taught me how to make guns already. I don't need you. So I think they had a trade relationship for 90 years, kicked him out. And then this is one of the major causes of when Japan closed again.
Yeah, isolate again.
Called
Sakoku.
the Sakoku period.
Yeah.
So Japanese trade, 90 years. It was until 1614. Banned Christianity. Japanese government formed again. All the Portuguese traders were replaced by Dutch traders. Why?
Okay.
Because the Dutch didn't bring Christianity with them. Didn't bring that bullshit. So at that time, the Dutch and the Chinese had exclusive trade rights with Japan until 1859. So good amount of time.
Yep.
Until the Five Nations Trade Treaty, I suppose, with the United States, England, France, Russia, and Netherlands began commercial relations with Japan.
Wow.
So in researching this stuff, we also realized that the Portuguese also influenced Japanese language.
Yep.
Most of them were like food items. Because like
yep.
items that Japan didn't have, right? Obviously, that's why they didn't have a word for it, right?
Yeah, so straightforward. They switch a little bit.
Yeah, right?
Still.
And a lot of Christian words.
Yeah.
Obviously, like the cross, Jesus, angels, heaven, hell. But what are the more common Portuguese, Japanese words today?
I think nowadays we still use obviously pan, which is bread, and then this is interesting, cup, kopu.
Okay. Kapu.
Yeah, we say kopu, but Portuguese it's copo.
Okay.
So we use that, and also everybody's using maybe every day. It's a button. We call botão, but that's Portuguese. It's botão. And this was actually I always thinking, tobacco, because like here it's cigarette, and then where's the tobacco from? And it's actually Portuguese word tobacco. Yeah, and soap, we say soap, but Portuguese is sabão. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But still, I think like Japanese trying to get all like from the sound. Sabao. Oh, it's soap.
So before Japanglish, it was Japangese or Portuguese. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
So
even Portuguese, we say Portugal.
Portugal. Yep.
Yeah.
So that does it for our Portuguese episode. If you guys have any more questions or you're curious about things that we didn't cover, let us know as well.
Yep. please.
It's kind of fun to do these historical type topics just because we both don't know any of it.
Yeah.
It gives us an opportunity to learn ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
when we explain it to you guys, teach you guys, we learn ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So
Like we learn, you learn.
mhm.
It's kind of like good to have this cycle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If there are other historic type topics you guys are interested about, let us know. Shoot us a DM.
Also, yeah, we
We'll try
have
to cover it.
a bunch of episodes about Japanese history too. So if you guys want to check, and you can always go back,
Yeah.
see any type of historical episode too. Yeah.
Yeah, check out our historical episodes about history. This brings us to Omoroi news.
Hi.
So we have two news items. So I think maybe 2 or 3 Omoroi news segments ago, we talked about how a place, Yamaguchi
Yep.
city, had like a, I guess, infestation of monkeys going to their town, harming people,
People. Yeah.
breaking into
Attacking
houses,
kids.
yeah, attacking kids, old people, and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a new news story about monkeys in Japan. So we thought that, oh, it's the same city, but actually it's a different city.
Yep.
Different city, different prefecture. So in Fuji City, Shizuoka Prefecture, monkeys were seen around, particularly in one of their stations, train stations. So the city officials sent like monkey hunters, I think 3 or 4 of them, to the station to try to find the monkey. And they summoned a witness. It was a woman who had seen the monkey before to supply them with more information. So during that time, the hunters or whatever were taping their rifles to, I guess, prevent any air leakage. And when they were taping it, one of them accidentally pulled the trigger and shot a tranquilizer dart to the woman's arm.
Oh no. Oh no.
I'm only laughing because she suffered no major injuries and was discharged the same day. But she was taken to the hospital, regained consciousness after an hour, but wasn't fully able to communicate. She wasn't lucid enough to communicate after another hour. So the dart had a tranquilizer dose size to subdue a 15-kilogram monkey.
Ooh.
So she ended up okay, but that's a big fail.
It's dangerous.
Right?
It was good because it was on arm. Imagine if it was neck or yeah.
I feel like Japan is so safe that like it's
They
really
don't even know.
un-Japanese for this to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. For sure, those people, they don't even know how to use guns or like rifles or something.
They maybe never had to
they
do that,
have
right?
to.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Cool.
All right, our next news item, not funny and not like this story, more serious. So, fashion designer, fragrance maker, artist.
Issei Miyake.
I'm sure he's known internationally, especially in the fashion world. He died on August 5th. He was 84 years old, and he died of liver cancer. So R.I.P. Issei Miyake.
Yeah.
We found, besides his fashion accolades, he won so many awards.
Yeah.
Influenced all this fashion culture in Japan and
It's like
around the world.
Before fashion was actually focused in Japanese culture, he was already trying to make the movement about like the fashion is really important for people. Fashion is not just about fashion. Fashion is actually the life. And then like it's an art.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's no wall. It should be like everybody should be equal with the fashion.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was his kind of
mindset,
like main focus mindset. Yeah.
So we found like 2 interesting facts about him. So the first one, He was a victim.
Yeah, he was a victim of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima when he was 7 years old.
I'm not sure when it was, but his family stayed in Hiroshima for 7 years as well.
After that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And for these things, he, like, I think recently he actually
Talked
talking.
about it.
Yeah. He was hiding because he doesn't want to get this type of image like he's a victim of the atomic bomb. He said like the life is beautiful even though that type of things happening to you, and he doesn't want to get all those attention because of his victim.
Yes.
But the one day the Barack Obama, I think he did speech for those atomic bomb things, and then
anti-nuclear warfare stuff.
And then that changed his mind, and then he feels like now I need to talk. So yeah.
Another fact that is interesting. Is actually
he was actually making clothing for Steve Jobs.
Yeah, so he was a close friend to Steve Jobs, and he's known for designing Steve Jobs' black turtlenecks.
One of the most popular turtleneck in the world.
He wore it on a daily basis, apparently.
Every day.
So apparently Steve Jobs asked Issey Miyake to design a custom-fitted turtleneck for him to wear during presentations. But Miyake ended up creating hundreds of them and mailing it to Steve Jobs directly.
And this is actually what I read the article. Steve Jobs, first of all, he went to Japan. He went to see the Sony. And then Sony employee was wearing the uniform made by Issey Miyake.
Okay.
So then Issey Miyake always care about like how the employee feels, like how they can work more in a better situation
if you
with
look
the clothing.
Good,
exactly.
You work good, maybe.
Yeah. So Steve Jobs love it. He brought back to US to the Apple. He had a meeting with all the people, says like, I want to make a uniform by Issey Miyake. But all the management team said no.
Okay.
Why?
Too expensive.
And I guess that point, like, why? It's just a uniform.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's why I think Steve Jobs still want to get by himself. So he messaged Issey Miyake, and Issey Miyake said, okay, I can make it. And then the how much was it? Was actually $175 for 100 of turtleneck shirt.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
cheap.
So cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1.70.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I think Issey Miyake is really like, sometimes he doesn't even care about money.
Yeah, right.
What he wants is really like, if you like it or if you think this is great, I want to make it for you because like your life getting better.
I feel like the most influential people in history don't do it for money.
Yeah.
Right?
No. They do for passion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that why we're doing the podcast?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So that does it for today's episode. Again, we really, really appreciate you guys listening.
Really, really.
Yeah, if you stayed till the end, really appreciate you guys. We gained a whole bunch of new listeners recently. So
yeah, and then we get a lot of comments, and I mean, the great thing about this is like we get great comment all the time. Yeah.
Helps
and
motivate
we appreciate that.
Yeah, you get to like some valleys where it's like, okay, this is kind of tedious to do, too tired to meet up to record and stuff, but then you get the nice message and it kind of motivates you to, okay, this is why we're doing it. We're making a difference and people are enjoying it. Yeah. So thank you for listening.
ありがとう。
Bye bye.
Bye bye. またね。